Welcome to the Roadmap to Secure Love. In today's episode, Kim and Kyle share insights on what makes sex great based on research and attachment theory. Let's dive in.
As certified sex therapists, Kim and I get a lot of people asking us about what does extraordinary sex look like? What does great sex look like in a committed relationship, in marriage, long term? And really, we actually kind of want to change that question a little bit. Is what does great sex feel like? And that's because when we actually understand kind of attachment theory and the research behind that, is that great sex is less about what we're doing, but more about how we're feeling with each other, how emotionally safe we feel to explore, be open, be curious, share what's going on with our partners in a very intimate way. And so today, Kim and I really want to dive into what does this secure sex feel like? And one of the things that we want to start with is really starting to map out for you what that would feel like and what those interactions would look like. Kim, do you want to share a little bit about what secure sex would feel like?
Yeah, I love that. I love the change of feeling instead of what we think it should be, or what social media tells us to be, or what movies tell us, right? It is about what we feel individually, and that will change depending on who you are, who you're with.
Right.
But when we have secure sex, we're able to be ourselves. There's a vulnerability in it. We're able to say the no if we don't like something, and we're able to hear a no without feeling that we've done something wrong. We're also able to hear a yes, and we're also able to say a yes. And we're able to dialogue with that with our partners before sex, during sex, and after sex.
Yeah, there's so much freedom when we feel secure, when we feel emotionally safe, when we feel close, when we feel cared for, when we feel supported in our relationship. It creates a lot of freedom for us to bring ourselves to our partner and them to do the same.
Mhm.
Right? And I think the first thing you're really talking about is when we have that secure foundation in the relationship, it gives us a space to have really clear consent. Can you talk about consent and why it's so important when it comes to sex and intimacy, and particularly about maybe how secure, when we feel secure with our partners, what that looks like versus when we feel insecure, what that would look like?
Yeah, so consent is huge, and I don't think we talk about it enough. And in fact, I think there's um, a belief for some, not all, that believe that if you're going to consent and you have to constantly ask and check in, that that's not romantic. That's not spontaneous. But actually, it's very sexy to ask and to check in and to make sure, right? So because we are engaging with somebody else, we have to make sure that what we do with them, to them, what we receive from them is something that is a mutual agreement, that it's mutually pleasurable.
Mhm.
There's no surprises, right, that can catch us off guard. Secure attachment finds those things very, very sexual, very, very arousing, erotic. And insecure attachment, though, it's really scary to ask, can I touch you here? Because if you hear a no, you can often feel like I might be doing something wrong. Am I a good lover? Instead of just saying, my partner doesn't want that.
It's not what their body wants, right?
It's not what their body wants right now. And it has nothing to do with you being a good lover or not, right? Or even to say a no. Kyle, you and I hear this all the time where it's like, I can't say no to my partner because my partner will feel bad. And I haven't given it to them in a long time, given it to them, right? It's not a mutual pleasure feeling, right? It's like it's something that I've got to do
Right.
instead of enjoy. And I have to do it if I'm going to be a good partner.
And I think you're touching into something, right, as you use your quotation marks, right, of the pressure. some partners feel. If this is a chore, this is something I got to do, this is an activity, versus actually being like, whoa, we get to connect, we get to explore each other's body. I get to give you pleasure, you get to give me pleasure, and we can talk about that, we can explore that, right? There's something I got to do does not feel erotic. It does not allow us to show up in a secure way. It feels more like a chore, which then leaves our partner also feeling that sense of shutdown in us, which doesn't allow for healthy consent or secure connection.
And I could hear my clients in my head, Kyle, and all of the clients to say, well, then will we never have sex? You know, there's this fear of like, if we do consent and it's not obligatory and it's fun and it's all of these things. I don't know how that happens.
Mhm.
I don't think we could ever achieve that. So I'm going to stick with what we know, which is not to consent, not to check in, make it obligatory, because at least I'm getting it, right? I can hear that theme.
Of course. And that's one of the things, right, is in leading into secure relationships and even secure sex, it takes risk, and it requires us to do things a little different, do things that are a little scary. And this is one of the things, right? Someone who's used to, okay, I feel this pressure and that's something I just got to do, for them to actually go to do that differently, like show, this is actually what I feel connecting, or actually I need us to take a bath together, or I need us just to snuggle for a little bit so I can feel closer to you because we haven't really been close for a little bit. And bringing what would feel pleasurable and allow them to show up in the relationship intimately is so much different than, well, this is just pressure, and if I don't feel that pressure, I'm just gonna kind of disengage and stay disengaged.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you, Kyle, which is like when you're talking about cuddling and, taking a bath together and making those things erotic and connecting, is that it sounds like you're kind of expanding the definition of sex. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is one of the things in working with so many couples and relationships, is a lot of us have been taught or given these kind of cultural messages of sex as penetrative. And that's sex, and that's the home run, that's all the metaphors we have for it. But the problem is that that's our definition of sex. It leaves out all the space and all the interactions before that are sensual, erotic, sexy, pleasurable, and even sometimes putting constraints on what we do sexually, which can even be more erotic and more pleasing, because we're entering into that with a sense of play and adventure. And so I think that's really to be able to expand our definition. Like I talk about this idea of what I call an erotic playground, right? Of when you have sex and you just have one way of having sex, you have only like one toy on the playground. But when you actually start to add a new slide, a swing, and other ways to interact and other ways to be connected, now you have a whole playground to really explore each other's bodies, to feel connected, to explore what feels good, what doesn't, to be open to trying new things, to be open to that intimacy and vulnerability that allows for so much more exploration within ourselves of what's erotic, pleasurable, and what's not, as well as what's going on with our partners.
And what I love about what you just said is that living that kind of life has you set up for having great sex until you're 150.
Yep.
Right? Because if it's only one way, what happens when we get sick? What happens when there's a disability? What happens when our bodies don't move the same way? Does that mean we can't have sex and can't have intimacy? No, I would want us to have, as a culture, as all humans, to have secure sex until they're 150.
Yep.
And that means we have to expand what it means. It can't be so narrow. And secure sex gives space for us to expand what we play on the playground with.
Absolutely. It gives us so much opportunity to, not even touching each other's private parts, right? A penis, a vulva. That there are ways to not touch those body parts and still have erotic play. And still
Not have orgasm and still have erotic play.
Exactly. And I think that is what, when we're talking about secure sex, that is a feeling of erotic play with so much possibility. not just this narrow lens, right? And we get to feel erotic, we get to feel sensual, we get to feel pleasure, we get to experience our partner's pleasure in a way that is really connecting, safe, and playful. And that is really the crux of feeling secure sexually with our partners.
So what I'm hearing you say, which I agree, is that when we have a secure attachment,
Mhm.
then we can co-create a sexual script
Yep.
where both people are getting their needs met, or if there are other partners, all of the partners involved in the relationship are getting their sexual needs met, and they're exploring, and they're collaborating, and they're dreaming,
Mhm.
and they're picturing.
They're fantasizing. I mean, one of the things which we'll do a whole episode on this, simmering, right? I think it'd be really powerful. This is one of the things too that really secure couples do such a great job of, or secure relationships do such a good job, is they don't wait till intimacy is when we're in the bedroom.
Right.
They do what Kim, you call simmering. Can you talk a little bit about simmering and how that's such a powerful way to keep an erotic, passionate relationship alive?
Yeah, and in fact, I just did it today. My example is you go in the morning, you can put a roast in the crock pot. So guess what we're having for dinner tonight? So there's a roast in the crock pot at 7 a.m., right? And then by noon, I'm like, oh, it's smelling good. Then by 3 o'clock, it's filling up the house, right? And I'm like, oh, wow, I can't wait to eat. And then by 6 o'clock, I'm like, nobody touch my stew, nobody touch my roast. I'm gonna eat. And that's how erotic play is, right? We leave a note for our partner
Mhm.
in the shower
Mhm.
on the cereal that they eat.
Mhm.
We text them during work, erotic things. We think about them, we're intentional. And then when we come home, we're all wound up sexually. It's like a charge, right? That doesn't mean that we have orgasm, that we'll have penetration. But what it does mean is that all day we erotically play together. And we can sit and be satisfied that we connected. And it's really quite fun. And I love post-it notes. I should own stock in it because I'm a big fan about flirting with post-it notes in the car, in the shoe, anywhere, to just say, you matter to me.
And
And not
that
only you matter, but you're sexy to me.
when that's that erotic part, right? We're talking about how sexy, we're talking about touching our partner's body, about seeing them experience pleasure, being able to connect with them in a way that is not just left for the moment that we are interacting, but is building up throughout the day, throughout the week. And this is one of the things I see a lot of couples where they really frown on scheduled sex, on scheduled intimacy, right? I like calling it scheduled intimacy because again, it gives us that whole playground. Uh, and that's again redefining sex. And so that's the thing is when we are able to simmer, when we are able to have this playground, when we're able to keep this connection, it actually makes that scheduled time to be intimate and when we are with each other's bodies a lot more enjoyable and not this like chore, right? And the reason I think people frown on scheduled sex is because it becomes this, they have this kind of attitude of, well, it's just kind of this chore or this thing I got to do. And even as I feel in my body, it just feels kind of boring, kind
Yeah.
of cool. Whereas when I think about, oh, I get to be intimate with my partner and we're going to kind of play and we're going to simmer and we're going to do post-it notes or we might make out in the morning before I go off to work, right? That then starts to set the stage up for excitement, anticipation, for closeness and connection that we both get to look forward to. And that is one of the core things of secure sex is even if it's planned, we can be so overt of, oh, yeah, we haven't been intimate in a while. Let's go be intimate. Let's go connect. I miss you. We can do that because we feel safe to be so overt and direct about that.
Right. Right. And secure sex can say, hey, you know what? I just heard a no. I want to, honor that no. And I'm kind of saying to myself that you're saying I'm a bad lover. And I'm not sure if that's what you're saying. Can we talk about that for a moment? It's about really being able to say those vulnerable things right then in the moment.
Right.
And your partner to be honest to move towards, to tell you what you're thinking.
And not move towards in a way that is not something they're consenting to, or they go and, okay, my partner is in a shame place. Now I need to do this act. They're able to say, oh, no, sweetheart, I'm not saying you're a bad lover. My body's just not in a place where I want that today.
Yep.
And I still love you. I still care about you, but it's just not something my body's wanting today.
Mhm.
Their partner's able to say, thank you. I really needed that reassurance. And, I look forward to when we do get to connect. And it makes perfect sense that your body's not open to being intimate today. I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that normalizing,
Mhm.
right? That something's not wrong with you if you don't want to be intimate. And something's not wrong with you if you want to be intimate, right? It's about co-creating an experience together where consent is highlighted, where play is in the forefront, play and pleasure.
And this is what's also so beautiful about secure sex. When we feel secure in our relationship or in that dynamic with whoever we're with, we're able to actually bring what's pleasurable to us, even if that person might not find it pleasurable, right? Or they might say something to us that, hey, I really love this act, or I find this super erotic, or I find this sexy. And it might be something our bodies don't want to do or don't find enjoyable. And that's a no for us, even though it's something that's so exciting for them. And we got a few options. We can kind of explore that with them. We can talk about that with them, because when we're secure with someone, differences are allowed. We
Mhm.
don't yuck someone's yum. There's space for someone to find something pleasurable that we don't find pleasurable.
Absolutely.
And so we can have empathy. We can honor that what they find sexy and pleasurable is what they find sexy and pleasurable. At the same time, we go, that's not something my body wants. And so how do we play with that? How do we work with that difference between us? And we're collaborative while also honoring our body and also honoring our partner's body.
That's right. That's right. And that's the power of secure sex. You have a lot of freedom,
A lot
a
of freedom.
lot of freedom in secure sex. And you have a lot of options. You have a lot of ability for closeness. Secure sex is amazing sex.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, I mean, this whole episode, we're really trying to convey that, because there's so much freedom, there's so much openness. You get to know me, I get to share what's going on for me. We get to collaborate, we're communicating all the time in our words and our bodies, and we're entering into an erotic space of adventure and play, which is so life-giving.
Mhm.
And that is the crux of feeling secure in our relationship and bringing that into our intimate lives.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the person's like, wow, that just sounds so magical and beautiful. But what happens if it doesn't feel magical and beautiful? And if it's just sex, or if it wasn't as good, or if it wasn't as good as yesterday? Secure sex incorporates that,
Mhm.
right? Because we're all human.
Right.
We're going to show up differently. We're going to act differently. What's pleasurable for us on Monday might not be pleasurable for us on Friday, and that's okay. But secure sex doesn't focus necessarily on the outcome. It focuses on the journey.
Mhm. Can you talk a little bit more about what it's like to be in the journey, maybe when we're not as into it in the moment, and how we talk about that or what we do with that with our partners when that's present for us?
Yeah, it's about feeling loved, pursued, desired, and allowing those feelings like marinate within ourselves, to enjoy that spark, to enjoy feeling desirous, to enjoy feeling pursued and being like, but not today. And that's okay.
Mhm.
But being mindful on how our partners are showing up for us and how we are showing up for our partners, and really slowing down and allowing us to feel and experience
Mhm.
that kind of intimacy. So it could be we're just cuddling. It could be just we're holding hands. It could be that we're having passionate sex and orgasms. It could be that we're just sitting at the table eating. But the connection, it's almost like electricity that's there. We slow down and we allow ourselves to receive that kind of love and give that kind of love, however it shows up.
That's so spot on. And again, this is why it's so important, and why we at the start of our start of this episode, we focused on the feeling, right? Because when we have that feeling of security and safety, we then can explore and play with different positions, different things, different ways to connect, because all that can be put on the table. But if we're not feeling that secure, that stuff gets blocked. It feels a little performative. It feels disconnecting, and it's not as erotic. It's not as enjoyable. Maybe we have an orgasm, but we don't feel connected. And it just feels like, okay, well, I'm just going to roll over to my side. You roll over to your side. And we don't get to really experience that passion and that magnificent sex that people, when they feel secure, get to have.
Right. Because we're celebrating the moments of connection throughout the day. We're celebrating that we are sharing ourselves with another, and another is sharing themselves with us.
Absolutely.
It's powerful.
It's beautiful.
And it's something that's different than what we've been taught.
Oh, so different. I mean,
That's exciting.
It is exciting. I mean, in my education, it was, what positions, very factual stuff, versus about how does it feel?
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to be in this moment? How does it feel to be present? And there was a beautiful research study by Peggy Klein-Platz. Do you know who I'm talking about? And one of the key things that in that research about extraordinary sex was partners feeling present, feeling fully immersed in the moment with each other. And this is one of the things, when we feel secure, we feel that safe to be fully present in our bodies and with our partners as well. And that is what creates that space for that passion and that exploration and the honesty in our sexual lives.
Yeah. So the goal is slow down, co-create your own sexual playground, feel okay to say yes, to say no, to hear a yes, to hear a no, simmer, and have great sex until you're 150. Sounds pretty good, yeah?
Sounds fantastic.
In this enlightening episode, Kim and Kyle unpack the secrets to extraordinary intimacy, emphasizing that great sex goes beyond physicality. It's about feeling emotionally safe and connected. They explore the importance of consent as not just a necessity, but an integral part of enhancing sexual experiences. By broadening the definition of sex, they invite couples to explore an erotic playground of possibilities, where secure attachment allows for deeper exploration and fulfillment. Thank you for tuning in.